Good afternoon. This is Teresa B, and I'm here Amplified Exposure with Miss Kimberla Lawson Roby. How are you? Thank you for coming to talk to me for these 30 minutes. How are you doing?
Yes, I'm doing well, doing very well. And thank you so much for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. It's an honor and a privilege. I am one of your biggest fans. I have been reading your book since the age of 15. So yes, so your very, very early favorites. I have cataloged in my bedroom right now. I don't know why I can show them to you, but you know, you're one of my favorites. I do have your latest book. The audience can see. Send a Woman, and she signed that for me when we met at the Christian Book Lovers Retreat.
Yeah, well, 2017, I think that was 2017.
2017. Yep. Yeah. So it's a pleasure to see you again. How's it going with the COVID and everything?
No, yeah, very, very different times, that's for sure. And I've been sharing with everyone whenever this conversation comes up that, I went into March and then our shelter in place order was issued, I believe, on the 20th for the next day. So as of March 21st, we were on shutdown, and my husband and I literally went into shelter in place mode. So end of March and then all of April, it was just kind of a wash for me. I didn't do as much as I wanted to do or thought that I would be doing, other than eating way too much. And we've eaten very, very well. And so I've had to get back to my workouts now and back to a different eating regimen over these last couple of weeks. And I'm actually feeling better. I mean, I realize now that I was a little more sluggish than I needed to be. Then in May, a little bit up and down, because I started to feel like, that whole movie, Groundhog Day. Every day was the same. You wake up, this is what it is. You go to bed, you wake up, and I had to stop watching as much news as I was watching. That was really starting to depress me, seeing the number of lives that were being lost and what families were going through. And so much of that. But now I'm back working a lot and daily, and just happy to be moving forward. But what I have been trying to encourage so many other women and men is that, let's try to look at this as an opportunity to reflect and refocus and to prepare, not for a new normal, but for a better normal. Let's see what we can do to try to be much better on the other side than we were pre-pandemic. And let's figure out